everybody, and welcome back to my channel. It is March, which means it's spring, which means it's also my birthday month, which means I'm going to be buying a lot of books, which means I'm going to be buying some books. I don't buy a lot of books, and when I do, I usually buy them secondhand. I use the library a lot. I'm really cheap, and I don't like to spend a lot of money on books, which are like my most expensive hobby besides video games. So when I do get money for my birthday and Christmas, I go all out. This is also the season of library book sales. Both my library and like the regional headquarters library both had their spring book sales this month, and I did get a couple books. I also got some new books from a local indie bookstores or from Barnes & Noble. So I have a pretty big stack here. There's also some down here that you can't see and some more over here that you can't see. So I'm gonna go over these. I'm gonna break them up into two categories, the used books and the new books, and count them all up and stuff like that, so you can see just how much I actually spend on books when I'm in the mood for it. So some of these I got from the various library book sales, and then a couple of them are just from like going to thrift stores with my friend when she came to visit me and picking them up, but we won't distinguish between those. So first of all, these books I actually bought probably in like January. This is The Santa Bright Doors and Rakes Fall by Vajra Chandrasekhara. I got these both. I got Rakes Fall full price new actually from Barnes & Noble, and then Santa Bright Doors I bought for like $8 on Pango. Pretty pleased with that. This one's in pretty nice condition. Yeah, I loved both of these books when I read them. I read Rakes Fall for the Win Prize, and then I read Santa Bright Doors after that because I loved Rakes Fall so much. I really loved both of these books, and I wanted physical copies so that I could reread them and mark them up and recommend them to people. And I've already reread Rakes Fall, but I would love to reread Santa Bright Doors sometime soon. So I'm glad I have these now. And then I have also been building up my Melissa Scott collection because I love Melissa Scott, and I love when I get really into an author who is like not super popular, who is kind of a niche author, who like has their fan base but is not one of the big names, because my favorite author is Ursula K. Le Guin, and like nice first edition hardback copies signed of her books go for like $800, and I'm not paying that. So it's always nice when I get into kind of a more niche author whose books go for really reasonable prices secondhand online. So I have bought myself a copy of Burning Bright, which is my favorite Melissa Scott book, and is one of my favorite covers I've ever seen, because the cover is just so ridiculous and has nothing to do with the actual story. Like from this cover you'd think it's about Glinda the Good Witch and Dracula or the Phantom of the Opera fighting glowing mummy masks in like 90s New York. It's not about that. It's about people playing VR LARP on an alien planet in the far-flung future. And it rocks, and everybody's bisexual. So I love this book. I would love to reread this sometime soon, and now that I have a physical copy and don't have to wait for a copy from the library, I will definitely be rereading this. It's in great condition. I also have Night Sky Mine. This is the most recent Melissa Scott book I've read. I read the first chapter of this and almost returned it to the library without reading the rest of it. Like, I don't know why the first chapter just didn't really hook me, and I put the book down and like didn't pick it back up for like 3 more weeks. I kept like renewing it at the library and being like, I'll read it, but I was getting to the last of my renewals, and I'm like, all right, let me bring this to work and like read as much as I can of it at work, and if by then I'm not hooked, then I'll just give it back to the library without reading it. So I read the second chapter, and I was immediately hooked from the second chapter. So I'm like, oh, okay. I maintain that the first and second chapters of this should be swapped. I'll talk more about this in my wrap up for March, but once you get past that first chapter, this was really good and I loved it. And I love the cover of this one. She's so pretty. And this is another one that I was able to get online for fairly cheap and is in beautiful, excellent condition. And then I also got, this is what I'm really excited about, this omnibus edition of the series, the trilogy, The Roads of Heaven. This is the edition I got from the library, and I just thought this cover was so beautiful, and it's just such a nice hardback omnibus edition of this series. And guess what? It's also signed, and I got this for like $27. So again, I'm very happy that I'm a fan of some niche authors, because I was able to get this beautiful hardback omnibus edition that's signed, and they even wrapped in Mylar for me for like $27. So that's what I'm really excited about. And then this is also one I got at the library book sale, actually pretty recently. I got Trouble and Her Friends, this like cute little mass market paperback edition of Trouble and Her Friends. This is like, I think, one of her most popular books, or like her most well-known book, because it's basically like lesbian neuromancer. It's not one of my favorites from her. It's probably like my least favorite book from her, just because the ending of this is so unsatisfying and so like just feels like it comes out of nowhere, but I still did enjoy this book a lot. And yeah, I'm glad I have a little mass market paperback edition now to go with my hardbacks. Okay, and this one I'm also quite excited about because this is so serendipitous. There was somebody in my comments, oh god, I don't remember your name now, I'm so sorry, and I don't have my iPad or anything with me. I think John or something? I'm so sorry if that's not your name. I'm gonna look it up after this and be so embarrassed. But anyways, somebody was talking to me about Sean Stewart and talking about how they really liked that author and recommended them, and it was an author I'd never heard of, and then I went and looked them up, and they did a lot of like cool like ARG or like ARG web text stuff in like the 90s, like when that was just getting started. And so I was pretty intrigued, but my library didn't have a lot of stuff from him, and I was like, am I gonna like find this online? Am I gonna go and buy a copy? And then at the library book sale, I was like, wait a minute, I recognize that name. I recognize Sean Stewart. So I had to go and look up and make sure that this was the same person, and it was. This is Nobody's Son, and I'm actually kind of excited to read this, and I'll probably read it sooner rather than later because it's one of like my favorite fantasy tropes, or fantasy or sci-fi tropes, which is when it takes place like after the traditional happy fairy tale ending, and it like deals with the actual like real life ramifications of like you know, taking a magic sword and marrying the princess and defeating the evil king and whatever. So I'm excited to read this one. Then also at the library book sale, I had to get this. This is Memory by Lois McMaster-Bujold. This is one of the books in the Vorkosigan saga. Oh, whoever had this even like stamped it. That's like, did one of the embossing stamps. Like you can't see it, but that's cool. So yeah, this is one of the books in the Vorkosigan saga, and this is one of the ones that like never got put in an omnibus edition, I don't think, because I remember getting like this exact same version from the library, but in like, I think it was a large print edition, because it was like twice this size and the font was huge, but it wasn't listed as large print in the system, which was so intriguing to me. But anyways, I really liked this one. This was probably one of my favorites in the series because it actually forced Miles to face like the consequences of his actions, and it deals a lot with, again, memory and with like not being able to trust yourself and trust your own memory. And so I really liked this one, and I saw it at the library book sale in like a nice cute hardback edition. I was like, I'll take that, I'll have that. It's not in super great condition, but it's not in terrible condition either. Like just the dust jacket's a little scuffed up, so like I take that. I might put it in Mylar, but the pages themselves are super clean, and the book itself is very holds up very well. So I'm excited to have at least one book from the Vorkosigan saga now. Like it's not one that I would go out and buy brand new, but finding it secondhand, I'm very pleased to take them off the library's hands. And then I also got Barbara Pym, Excellent Women. Oh, that just reminded me, I do have a book in my room that I just shut my cat in. It's E.M. Forster's, what's it called? His first book, E.M. Forster's first book, and I'm really enjoying it. I just started reading it last night, and I was like, let me just read one chapter so that I can say I've started it. And I got like through halfway of the book because it's just like, first of all, E.M. Forster's just like ridiculously funny in like a very understated British way, and then also it's like a British novel about like British social structures that is really critiquing those social structures and like pointing out how ridiculous they are, which is what I like in my like 1800s, 1900s British fiction. So I'm enjoying that one so far, and it has a really beautiful cover. I'll put a picture of it right here because again, I can't go in my room right now because my cat's in there, and if I let her out, all hell will break loose. But anyways, I also got Excellent Women by Barbara Pym. I love reading classics about women and women's lives by women, and then I recognized this person's name when I saw it on this like table at the library book sale, and I was like, how do I recognize this person's name? She was one of the examples given in my MARC cataloging homework for my library science degree. Like it one of the examples of like given of like how to do MARC cataloging was her, and I was like, oh, well, it's nice to see you again, Barbara Pym, so hopefully I'll actually read something by you. And then kind of similarly to that, I have Edith Wharton's Touchstone. I actually got this in like a Goodwill or something. Not a Goodwill, but like a similar big thrift store for like $1, and I just got it on a whim because I've definitely heard of Edith Wharton. Age of Innocence, I think, is what she wrote. Oh, sorry, I'm bleeding. Oh, my cat scratched me up. But that one's pretty long, and again, I just don't really love books about like the intricacies of like high society. It's just not really my thing, but I have heard of Edith Wharton and I wanted to check her out, and this I think was her first published novel, and this was actually so interesting. And what I found the most interesting about this was actually the like prologue and the introduction and the epilogue, which like talks about Edith Wharton and her life and like really sheds some light on why this book ends the way it does, because I thought the writing in this was beautiful, and I thought that the kind of portrait of a man selling his soul because he doesn't respect women was so interesting and so well done, and just the kind of slow disintegration of his self-worth and his marriage as he like knows he did something wrong but like can't admit it to himself. But then at the end of the book, like all is forgiven and his wife forgives him, and like the narrative says that he was actually right to sell the letters and it actually helped the woman who was secretly in love with him. Like I don't know if I agree with all that, but the epilogue really sheds light on why the story ends that way and like why Edith Wharton would choose to say that. Like it was just so interesting learning about her life and about the difficulties of being like a female novelist in America at this time. So interesting. I do want to read more from Edith Wharton now because again the writing was just really, really beautiful. I was underlining like every line. So this was good. I've already read this. And then I have this one. I typically don't pick up books from the library book sale that are like discarded, weeded library books because I am pedantic and I do like all my books to be like in nice condition and not have like the spine label on them. I don't really mind the Mylar, but I do mind the spine label. But I got this one solely because Ursula K. Le Guin blurbed the back, and I know why now she blurbed the back after reading the like synopsis. It's because it's set in Oregon and she lived in Oregon and loved Oregon. So yeah, it's about a 13-year-old girl and her father who like are living off the grid in a nature preserve, and they get found and stuff happens. I don't know. I need to read this one so I can get it out of my house, but I haven't yet. And then I have these two books that I got solely because the covers were pretty, and because I went twice to this book sale in particular. I went one day just to get stuff for myself, and I was very picky about what I was getting. I only got books that I thought I would for sure read, and I only got 3 books. And then the second day I went because my mom wanted me to go and see if there are any puzzles left for sale, and that was bag day, so you had to like pay $10 at the door, but then you got like a big bag and you could just fill that bag up with as many books as you could shove in there and just walk out. But there weren't any puzzles when I went, so I'm like, I've paid $10, I'm getting my money's worth, I'm filling this freaking bag up with books. So I just picked up anything that even looked remotely interesting or had a pretty cover, and I got these 2 books just because I like the covers. I might read this one because again I love to read about women, like classic books about women. I'm probably never gonna read this, let's be completely honest, but I'll put it on my shelf and it'll be pretty. At one library book sale I got this cute little mass market paperback edition of The Golden Compass, which is a series I loved when I was a kid. Can't believe my Catholic mother let me read this series where they kill God at the end, but I loved this series. I loved Lyra. She was like one of my favorite characters as a kid, and I loved like the love story between her and the guy in the second book. I don't even remember his name, but it was so tragic and so beautiful to young me that I really want to reread this series actually. So when I saw it, I was like, I want to reread this. I have a copy of the first book, but I thought it was at my parents' house. Turns out it actually was in my apartment. This is my edition. I really love this cover. I think they look so cute. But this edition is like beat to hell and back. So I might even read from the mass market paperback editions because they're just like a little bit in nicer condition. Then when I went to the other library book sale, I found the other 2 books in the series, The Subtle Knife and The Amber Spyglass, which I'm excited about. So I can reread the full series. And also this one still has tabs in it, which sometimes happens when people donate books to the library with tabs, and I'm like, we are not spending the time to take those tabs out, sorry. But I'm excited to see what this person thought they needed to tab in this series. But yeah, I'm really excited to reread this one. What's his name? What's this guy's name? Will. That's his name. Okay, I was thinking it was Philip, but that's the name of the author who wrote the story. It can't be Philip. So yeah, I'm excited to reread this series and have such cute books to do it with. And then this one was a vanity purchase. This is The Two Towers by, you know, obviously J.R.R. Tolkien. I have copies of this that I read, but I just really loved this cute little mass market paperback edition with this beautiful like painting as the cover. And it has like a cool picture of him on the back. It's just very cute and little. and I'm like, I'll keep this. I will keep this. I definitely won't read from this because it's in a little bit, it's not in bad condition, but it's not in great condition either. And I'll read from the other editions, but this was a vanity purchase. I need to buy some book stands so I can display this one because I really like it. And then I got these two Robin McKinley books. Spindle's End, which I think is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, and The Blue Sword, which is like a sword and sorcery, the hero who was promised to wield the sword and save the lands, but surprise, surprise, she's a woman. I think both of these are technically YA, but they're from that era in which YA meant like literally anywhere from like 8 to 18, so I have definitely read YA books from this era and really enjoyed them before, like the Old Kingdom series by Garth Nix. The Earthsea books are technically YA and I love them, so I'm excited to read both of these. And I've heard really good things about Robin McKinley. She's like listed in the same breath as like Patricia McKillip and Juliette Marillier and Ursula Le Guin and Robin Hobb, so like that generation of female writers writing fantasy in like the 90s and early aughts. So I would like to get to these soon, maybe do a video of like reading Robin McKinley, because I also have like EPUB copies of Beauty, I think, and another one of her fairy tale retellings that I got from like a Humble Bundle, like female sci-fi fantasy bundle that I bought and just have never downloaded and actually read. So I would like to read those. Okay, so that was all my used books, and now we're gonna go on to my pile of new books. And first of all, let's get these classics that I bought. One of these I've already read. I have already read Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, and I love this book. I love this and Ulysses. They're kind of connected. The protagonist in this book is like a side character in Ulysses, Stephen Dallas, and I loved this book when I read it. I would like to reread it. I really wanted to get both this one and Dubliners in this like signature editions, Union Square and Coast signature editions that Barnes & Noble is carrying now, because I loved the covers of both of them, but I went back with a gift card to buy them, and Dubliners was gone, so I had to make do with just Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. But I still love this one, and yeah, I want to reread this one soon, which is why I bought it. And then I also have Moby Dick by Herman Melville, which I've never read. I would like to tackle this one this year, and I think I'm going to start it soon, because if I don't start it soon, I'm going to lose my nerve and I'm not going to read it. And I have promised myself this, and I'm going to do it, and I'm going to read this year, and I don't care how long it takes me, I'm going to do it. And that's why I just went ahead and bought a copy, because typically with classics, especially classics that are this long, I get scared buying them from the library, getting them from the library, because I know I'm going to want to take a long time with them. I know I'm going to want to really like thoroughly go over the text and like underline stuff and keep them for a long time and just take my time with them. So I just went ahead and bought this, and these signature classics are like really cheap for what they are. It was like $16, so I'll take that. And frankly, I really like the cover, and I also really like how sturdy it seems. I know this is like a very unpopular opinion, but I don't really like the Penguin Black Classics because I feel like they don't hold up very well. Like, they're on the shelf at the bookstore and they're already like beat to hell and back. Like, the cover's already wearing off. The black paint on the cover's already cracking and wearing off. And I just don't really like that. I think it's the librarian in me. Like, I want the books to look nice and be and like hold up and be in good condition for a long time. And those books just aren't. And I know a lot of people like that look. They like the look of like seeing the book get tarnished and damaged as they read it and as they wear it. And I'm not saying that that's wrong or like you're evil or whatever, you're destroying the books or whatever. Just for me personally, I prefer something like this where it looks like it's like built to be opened and cracked around and held open and stuff like that. So long story short, that's why I got this edition, and I'm going to start it very soon. And if I don't start it soon, then you all can throw rocks at me. Then from an indie bookstore, I also got The Epic of Gilgamesh. I've always wanted to read this, and it's, you know, it's a very old story. You can find like free translations of it online on like Project Gutenberg and stuff like that. Free translations are online everywhere, but I was very drawn to this edition, and how big it is and how much space there is to annotate. And there's also an introduction and quite a lot of like notes and essays in the back. So I'm really excited to read those. And I think this is one of the ones, I looked this one up, and it's specifically one of the ones that like does accurately translate and like address the depth of the relationship between Enkidu and Gilgamesh in this book. So I really want to start this one soon because I've always wanted to read The Epic of Gilgamesh, and now I can finally do it. Well, I could always do it, but now I have a nice copy. I also got My Autobiography of Carson McCullers by Jen Shapland. This is a memoir. Originally, I got this because I love Carson McCullers, and I kind of thought this was going to be like a biography of her. No, it's a memoir of this author discovering Carson McCullers' letters to another woman. Carson McCullers has a really interesting, complicated history, especially around like the public perception of her sexuality. So this is about this author discovering those letters and then discovering all like the discourse around Carson McCullers and like what that means for female novelists and their sexualities as a whole, like what it means to discover and position yourself as a female novelist in the world. So I definitely want to start this one soon, even if it's not like a straightforward biography of Carson McCullers. I do feel like I will probably learn a lot in this, not only about her letters, but also about Shapland's feelings about her letters. So I've never read Jen Shapland before, but maybe this will get me to read her. I also got Virginia Woolf, A Room of One's Own. I've already read this one. I really liked this. Frankly, I got it because the cover is gorgeous and it was only $12. $12 for this tiny book though. I mean, come on, that's crazy. But anyways, I really liked this. It's about basically looking into like the socioeconomic reasons as to why there aren't more female novelists throughout history and how it's kind of impossible to write a novel if you don't have money and like a quiet place to sit and write. Many women throughout history did not have either of those things. They were always in like the main living room with their family, with their children, taking care of their children and their husbands and the extended family sometimes. And they also did not have the economic circumstances to let them just sit at home and write. They had to either be taking care of the children or going out and working to make money. Really interesting and still so relevant. There is a fair amount of white privilege and like classism in this book, saying that, you know, no genius ever came from poverty, and I think that flattens the feminist critique, but the feminist critique is still really interesting and still very relevant. And also Virginia Woolf is just a wonderful writer, and I underlined a lot of passages in this that were just beautiful and very poetically written. So I definitely want to read more from Virginia Woolf. I've read Orlando, which is the only thing I've read from her, I think, but I really enjoyed that, so I would like to read more from her. Then I did it. I got physical copies of Book of the New Sun of the way that Tor does it, they break it up into 2 little paperbacks, which is probably a good idea. So I have Shadow and Claw, which is the first chapter, Shadow the Torturer and Claw of the Conciliator, and Sword and Citadel, which is Sword of the Lictor and Citadel of the Autarch. And this has introductions from Ada Palmer, so I'm excited for that. I've heard things about her. I've never read it though. I've never read from her though. Yeah, so I want to reread these books immediately. So I can actually understand what's going on in this book. But now I have copies and I can do it. I don't have to read the giant hardback omnibus edition from the library that has cigarette burns in it. So I will not burn holes through this one. And then this is a book I actually did not buy, but I wanted to include it in this one anyways. This is Wolfworm by T. Kingfisher. My friend got me this book for my birthday, and it's about, I've heard good things about this from my coworker too. I've heard this is about bugs and a woman who is a scientific illustrator, so she draws bugs and stuff. And I don't know much more about it, but I'm excited to read it. So I'm not the hugest T. Kingfisher fan, but I find in small doses I like her. I can't read a lot of her books like back to back. When I did that, I did not have a good time and they all started to really blend together for me, but I feel like just reading, you know, one a year in different genres is fine. Like I'll talk about this in my March wrap up, but I read the arc of her new romantasy book and liked it well enough, and I think I'll like this one too, just because they're such different genres, so it's not gonna feel like overload. So excited to read this one, and I'm excited to read that one because I'm excited to compare and contrast it to The Works of Vermin by Hiren Ennis. I don't know if that's how you say that last name. Ennis? I'm so sorry, Hiren Ennis. I'm just gonna call you Hiren, like we're best friends. Because there's still a bookmark in this. Because I loved this book. I really, really loved this book, and I immediately went out and read their debut novel, Leech, which I also really loved. Again, I'll talk about it in my wrap up, but I love this book, and I do not buy brand new hardbacks without reading them first. I just don't. I'm very picky, and I know that I'm probably not gonna like a lot of stuff, especially new stuff, and I don't want to spend $29 and not like it and just have to like put it in a little free library or donate it to the library or try to get some of my money back by like doing a used book exchange program with one of my like local bookstores. But I saw this when I went to the bookstore with my gift card, and I looked at it and I was like, I've heard really good things about this from people I trust, but I don't know. $28, that's a lot. I'll get it from the library. Especially because this edition, like, I don't know why this dust jacket, like, does not fit the book. I don't know if that's all of these books, because sometimes Tor do some fucked up shit with their dust jackets, especially for, like, authors that they don't care about, who aren't super popular. Like, I still am mad about the Exordia dust jacket and the way that Exordia has literally Bible paper printing. But anyways, this dust jacket, like, does not fit, and, like, you can see where somebody has tried to, like, readjust it and, like, try to make it fit. I also tried to do this when I got the book and brought it home, but it's just impossible. The dust jacket is just too big for the book, so it doesn't line up right. But anyways, again, I am unfortunately vain about my books, and so that also contributed to me being like, I'll just get it from the library, and then if I like it, I'll order a copy. Well, it took the library so long to get this book in. We still don't have a copy of it. Nobody in the region bought a copy. There are copies outside of the region, but it's a new book, and new books have to circulate within the region for 6 months. So either I have to wait for the library to buy a copy, process it, and then give it to me, or I have to wait 6 months. And I'm like, I could do that, but I just really wanted to read this, and miraculously, I had exactly $28 left on my gift card. And that's how much money this book is. So I went back to the bookstore and I bought it, and I was like, I better fucking like this book because this is $28. But I loved this book. I loved the atmosphere and the tone and the world building and the writing style and the characters and the character relationships and what this book does with narrative and framing work. So I'm excited to see how, like, T. Kingfisher's Creepy Bug book compares to this Creepy Bug book, which I read and absolutely adored. I also have Dahlgren by Samuel Delany. I've read a couple Delany stories before. He was really influential when I was in my sci-fi short story class in undergrad. I read his essay collection, The Jewel Hinged Jaw, which I really enjoyed. He was, like, one of the first people to, like, critically analyze sci-fi as a genre and, like, talk about sci-fi that way. So I am excited to read this, especially because I just read I read a fantasy series from him, what is it called? Return to Neverion, and I really enjoyed that. So now I'm way more excited to read this long book about a weird city and the weird happenings there, which is a topic I love. We love when there's a weird city and weird stuff happening in it, so excited to read this one. And then I also got The King in Yellow by Robert W. Chambers. This is like a Lovecraftian story about this play called The King in Yellow that starts to impact all these people's lives. It's like a short story collection, interconnected short story collection. Lovecraft admired this book, so it's like Lovecraft for Lovecraft. I've never read Lovecraft, but I find the concept fun, and I'm excited to read this one, especially because I feel like it's one of those things where I've just seen references to it in a lot of pieces of media, and that made me, like, want to go and read the source for myself. The spur for this particularly was, like, just the fact that it's been reprinted and is, like, widely available now by the Horror Writers Association and their series, The Haunted Library of Horror Classics. But also, I just read an arc where, like, a King in Yellow figure is, like, very prominent in the book, and that made me be like, I gotta just go read this series, this short story collection. I gotta figure out what it's about. So, and I think that is it. That is all my books. I have 26 books here. Of these books, I've already read 12, and the rest I haven't read, and yeah, very excited to read these, and hopefully you'll see them pop up in my wrap-ups sooner rather than later. Yeah, I'm very pleased with this book haul, this birthday book haul, and this is the last time I'm going to be spending so much money on books for probably a while, unless of course I find some good deals. And that's not even all my books. I do have more books on my display bookshelf back there that I think I'm going to do a separate video for, because I have been growing my Earthsea collection, and I would like to show those books off in their own dedicated video. So thank you so much for watching this book haul. Let me know if you've read any of these books that I haven't read yet, if you haven't, if you have any thoughts on these. So thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.